Emma Ledger, Emma from Sky. Hello, Emma.
Hiya. Hi, everyone.
How are you doing this morning?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me along.
Well, look, I had a sneak preview when we chatted a couple of days ago, so I know that you've got a lot to offer us. Just to start with, I suppose, just give us a bit of an overview. You're a digital product owner, am I right, at Sky?
Yes. So I've been at Sky now for 2.5 years. Prior to Sky, this is actually my 10th year in digital. So I've done lots of different things under the digital umbrella, as I'm sure most of us have, from SMEs to sort of big corporate. So yeah, my kind of speciality, I guess, started off in e-commerce. I've been through lots of years of digital transformation. And yeah, now I'm in Sky at the Customer Service Group, which is the biggest segment of Sky. It actually includes things like, every agent that you speak to at the contact center. It includes engineers who actually come and install Sky in your house, and every single instance of customer service. So you can imagine it's absolutely massive. So yeah, that's the part of Sky that I work for.
Right, really at the forefront of making sure that experience that those customers receive, for whatever reason, is as good as it can be.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Well, look, Emma, I'm going to hand over to you. Everyone else who's listening along to what Emma has to say, remember, pitch in with those questions if you like. And then when Emma's shown us the fantastic material she has to share, we'll see what questions we have for her. But Emma, over to you.
This is just a snapshot of what it is I'm going to talk to you guys about today. Really kind of drilling into, as Clive just said, for us at Sky, especially in service, mobile CX is very integral to what it is we do, especially as a product owner. I'll start there and start off with a good stat for us to consider. So I'm sure, just like I do, a lot of you guys will have those horrible reminders on your phone that tell you how much your screen time has been for the week prior, and it's around 5 hours a day. And also with over 50% of users accessing the internet via mobile devices, you can see that mobile CX needs to be at the forefront of everything we do. So in product, I think the first thing for us to talk about is understanding the end-to-end journey is really pivotal to creating great products. So in ideation, we really need to consider, what is it the customer's doing? What is the human aspect of this? It's not just about creating that digital journey from a technology perspective. It's understanding what scenario they're in. Do they have the phone in the hand? What is their intention and what are the outcomes? What does good look like? So a really good example there is, from Sky Mobile, is if a customer has just landed in a new country and they're roaming, perhaps they're just trying to let their family know that they've arrived safe. They've got the phone in their hand. This is where this question here that I've noted on the screen is really important. Is the device an enabler or a barrier? We need to make sure that in that scenario, we're addressing the concern that the customer is likely frustrated. They've got the phone in front of them. They're desperate. They're just trying to use their mobile data. We're actually creating a barrier if we're not getting those settings right. If that's the case, then we need to consider, what is that unhappy path and how can we handle it as quickly and as effectively as possible to get them back up and running. Trends in usage and how the industry sets expectation. This is really, really important. So sometimes just by taking our foot off the gas a little bit and not really keeping up to date with, what the companies are doing, big companies like Spotify or Apple, what is it they're doing and what key trends are we seeing? What reports are in for the industry to help us understand how customers are using their devices. Things like making sure that, use of menus, for example, that's a really big one. If customers are set the expectation of using a burger menu in the top left, we need to make sure we are really following in the footsteps of those thought leaders and making sure that we're up to date. So even on successful journeys, iteration and optimization is really key. So for us at Sky, that's really about making sure we partner with really great software companies to help us understand how our journeys are performing. So the next one is identify the differences in usage across devices. So this is about really understanding how customers consume your product differently and what that differentiated experience should look like. So a really good example to bring this one to life is the New Yorker magazine. So, really famous magazine, kind of a cult following. One of the things that they're really famous for is their crossword. When they actually created their app, they built the crossword in the same way that they built all their articles, which actually meant that on a device, if you opened a new tab, which most of us do when we're distracted using our phones, or if a call comes through, you actually lost the progress of your crossword and you were back to square one. So that is a really great example to always keep at the front of our minds when we think, how should we create our experiences differently, depending on, you know, what aspect of our product or service a customer or user is using. The next point is how, you know, what do we know about the customer? So this is about where the technology side comes in. So what can we gauge from the device that a customer is using? You know, how can we use that to actually fuel how we make things easy for them? You know, what does their logged in state tell us? And, you know, using personalization and meaningful content is really important in building that trust. So a great example there is for Sky Mobile. If you're on a train, for example, we know that you're using mobile data. We also know that your data at the moment is quite low. So we have a proposition at Sky called Roll, which is where a customer, if they have unused data at the end of a month, rolls into what we call a piggy bank. We could actually send a push notification to a customer to say, we see you're low on data, you're about to run out on data, would you like to roll 1 gig? So that's a great example there of how we can consider, you know, what we can get from the technology they're using and how we can enhance that experience. The next one is let them lead. So we know customers are so used to doing things their own way. There's a power in having a phone in your hand 24/7. They're keen to control that experience. So again, this really kind of feeds into the example I just shared with how can we lead with personalized conversational tone? How can we build that trust? How can we, you know, create that feeling that they can be proactive and they can feel empowered, that they can use our journeys really easily, they can resolve problems quickly, and also that they come back to digital knowing that we can offer those great experiences for them. So just to touch on really how we at Sky work on mobile CX. So again, with some good stats to sort of bring this to life is 1 in 3 customers leave a brand they love just after 1 bad experience, and 92% after 2 or 3 negative experiences. So this really will tell you, you know, especially for myself and my colleagues at Sky in customer service group, how important this stuff is. And again, 67% of customers prefer self-service over speaking to an agent. This is really, really important, especially with multi-channel, which at Sky we're really passionate about. So the first step that I'd like to talk about here is gathering touch points across your business and having the data to understand all of those stages and how the customer is getting through those journeys is massive for ideation. So for us, what we do is complete regular deep dives, and that is, you know, identifying subject matter experts and forming working groups and monitoring those situations. So not just, you know, annually reviewing the stats and getting back together. We're talking actually monthly, you know, sharing those stats between each of our areas. So do we know, for example, in the contact centres, the agents can share with us really important things like Sky Mobile customers typically will call to troubleshoot a problem with their device from the device that they're calling from, which is a problem because then the agent will have to then say, I'm really sorry, could you call us back again, but from a different device, because we actually need to do a reset on this particular one. So that's a really important thing for us to know that we couldn't get, say, for example, from our digital dashboards. And that helps them, it helps us, it helps the customer. So again, those touch points and kind of back to the original point I made, understanding those real life scenarios is really, really important. So knowing how your customers are using your journeys. This ties into that first one, but really what I'm trying to kind of put across here is that we need to be open to the fact that they may not be using them, those journeys in the way that we thought originally at Ideation. So at Sky, we use lots of different companies, as I said earlier, to help us understand that. So we work with Qualtrics. They help us understand frustration scores, customer satisfaction, reviews. We use Content Square. So we're able to watch customers on our website, see things that, again, for mobile CX is super important. So things like clicking images when we wanted them to click text, heat maps, understanding, you know, what the scroll looks like. Are we giving them too much information? And Optimizely as well. So everything we do at Sky we actually released through Optimizely, so we can get a tangible, measurable benefit and understanding, is a customer still likely to call or not call, which is our main KPI in service, because of this change that we've done. So again, multi-channel is key. So I think the main thing that I'd like to share here is, don't go solely for a strategy just on an app. So I think mobile CX, often we talk a lot about apps, and we can neglect the responsiveness of our own online journeys as well. So I'll talk a little bit more on the next slide about a journey that we did on sky.com. That really was looking at, instead of thinking about what you can't do on a browser, for example, push notifications, we were looking at contextual notifications. You know, some people won't have the app and don't like to use the app, and we need to make sure that they're catered for as well. So the next one is guide customers to the best places to self-serve. So again, not everybody wants to communicate in the same way. We need to make sure that we provide lots of different options, but also work within our objectives and strategies as businesses as well. So how can we provide customers with lots of choice and help them feel in control, but also guide them into journeys that we know would be better for them? So again, in CSG, what we try and do is let people contact. So we're not trying to hide contact information, but also we need to make sure we're deflecting unnecessary calls. So for example, when they're trying to call from the Sky Mobile that I mentioned earlier. So we can use things like social proof to help with that. So, you know, the fastest way to resolve your issue here is messaging, for example, as opposed to a call, or 80% of customers solved their issue this particular route. So that's really important as well. Focusing on early adoption of digital first approach. This one is something that we'll see in an example on the next screen. We need to really think about if a customer's first experience of digital is positive or not. If they are, we know at Sky, they're actually 3 times more likely to try digital again. This is great for us in terms of multi-channel and thinking about, you know, the wider CSG operation, because this means that we get less repeats, we get less average handling time, and we have customers, again, feeling empowered. We know from the stat at the top of the page that 67% of customers would prefer self-service, so we just need to make sure that those self-service journeys are as effective as possible. So this is just a working example that I wanted to show you today. And this is what we call Sky Mobile Hub 2.0. So it actually looks like an app. So this is actually the responsive sky.com within the My Account section for mobile. So this is where logged in customers will come in and they'll see their whole mobile account and be able to do everything they can do to manage that account here. So a couple of the screenshots that I've got there, just to really demonstrate what it is we tried to do, is we really thought, what is the easiest way to provide all of this information to customers that is meaningful? So if we think, for example, in a service area, you've got so many different customer states. In one of our journeys, swap, which is sending your old device back in and picking up a new device, we have 44 individual customer states just for that one journey. How can we make this hub work for them? So actually what we did was we made it entirely contextual and dynamic, and we only showed the customer what it is they showed an intent that they were interested in seeing. So on the left-hand side there, you'll see this is what we call the hub. So we give them a snapshot of their next bill, the snapshot of the piggy bank balance, and then we have a stack below of the SIMs that they have, the devices that they have, and anything they don't have, we show an upsell. And that is literally it. And those cards down there, we will show the next best actions and the latest bit of information for them as well. So if you can see here, we've got a contextual notification on the second image that will show you that this person's low on data and will allow them to roll directly from that screen. On the third screen there, you'll see that these are all the different SIM updates that we can show for a customer. So as soon as they log into that hub, we're going to give them that information, and we're going to give them a call to action if we know they need to unlock something. So you can see there more warning signs, things like that. We get them sorted straight away. We actually moved from let's say Hub 1.0 that was desktop designed, and it had 12 tiles, and each tile was about all these different things. So it was about settings, it was about managing your data, it was role, all these different things were separated. And then at the very top of the screen, we had a drop down for the SIM. So actually you'd constantly having to, on a mobile device, go right back to the top of your screen, drop it down again and go and complete an action. We actually found that a lot of customers were not realizing they were managing one sim, managing a different sim, and actually did things like ported numbers to the wrong accounts, rolled data and wanted to roll it back. So we're calling the contact centers. It's things like that. So how can we just show them what is relevant to them based on purely their intent? So here's some other examples of Hub 2.0 as well. So once we know that they're interested in managing Mike's sim, that they've clicked from the Hub home, we can take them into these tabs here. So manage plan, for example. What's interesting here and kind of leads into the point I made about differentiating experiences. At Sky, on the My Sky app, 70% of people choose to roll. So they'll go and roll their 1 gig of data or 5 gig of data on the app, and it's 70-30 split. So actually in .com, they're much less likely to roll with us. However, they are a lot more likely to change their data plan with us. So we need to make sure that this is really, really simple and as easy to use as the app. So again, if you look at this screen, we're putting as much information as we can in, but we really need to focus on every word we use to fill that space. It needs to feel simple, easy, and give them that feeling, that empowerment that they can make these changes and not mess their account up, which often customers will ring us about because they're a little worried, have I done the right thing? Have I made the right change? And on the third screen there, that is the example of swap that I mentioned earlier. So this screen here, this tab, will have 31 different views. And each different view is relating to the customer state that they're in right now. So this particular one is, this is at the point where they've bought a new device on our shop, and we're letting them know it's time to post your old device back. And at each stage along the way, we will change that screen, and you'll see below at the bottom there is swap timeline. We'll let them know what they've done previously, what the next step is, and what's to come. So really helping them situate themselves on that journey, and they know they can keep coming back for those updates. Further to this as well, as a case study, this is what we call show custom usage. So we knew that, to try and drill a bit deeper into what was happening with changing the data, which we call mix at Sky, that's our proposition name, they were struggling to understand the concept of it. So we at Sky work slightly differently. We have a SIM-only proposition, and we don't use phrases like contract, which a lot of our competitors do. So we're almost at a disadvantage, and we're trying to communicate this, for the commercial side of the business. The operation is saying this is difficult, customers are struggling to understand it. So within show custom usage, what we tried to do is understand why that is first and foremost. So we ran user testing sessions. We have a lab at Sky where we invite customers in and watch them on those journeys as well. So we create in prototypes, again, always on digital screens and on the most popular devices as well. We identified from that semantic issues, so the usage of the words. They weren't understanding the word mix. We knew that so many people were using the words contract. So things like that, really, really big in terms of how we rethought the copy that is used on these screens. We introduced this graph here. So this actually shows what each SIM was using on the account for the last 3 months, identifying usage trends. And then we actually serve a next best action of what we recommend they would do. So this not only explains what mix is, it shows how they've used mix and what mix can offer them. So you can see at the bottom there, you're on the 1 gig plan, you're actually saving more than half of the data on your current plan every month. This is great for rolling. So again, situating where roll fits in, where piggyback fits in. And for CX on this example here, we actually had to test 11 versions of this because with such a small screen, we actually need to convey a lot of information here. And also we need to bear in mind that because this is a browser, we're looking at how it's responsive, how it scales up and down, how it changes from vertical to horizontal. There was a lot of things we needed to try. And actually this looks very, very stripped down. So it was very hard actually to communicate this to our commercial colleagues who felt, there's so much more we need to say here in this screen. Actually, through releasing this through Optimizely, we were able to get that tangible benefit and share back to the business. This is exactly what needs to be on the screen. So simple, so stripped back, and really focused on what it is that conveys that message. So the result on this one was that we had a real increase in account management calls over the past couple of years. And just by bringing this feature out, we were able to reduce calls on account management by 1/3, which at Sky is absolutely massive. So that's a real way of conveying that message to stakeholders who may feel that reducing what's on the screen is a risk. And to conclude, I've got some top tips that I've learned along the way that I'm going to share today. So when gathering data and insight from your multi-channel colleagues, focus on those device specifics. So this is kind of back to that original point about the mobile customers calling to troubleshoot issues on the same device. What can your colleagues in, that are on that front line, right? What can they tell us about what customers are finding hard? If they're choosing to call in, can we ask them, can I ask, did you try digital first? How can we help you consider that? So this actually helped in Hub 2 for us to create deep links. We actually introduced what we call a SIM switcher and a device switcher, which means that if an agent, while a customer is on the phone, sends a text message with a vanity URL, so for example, sky.com/roll, we're able to get them straight into that digital journey. They select which SIM on a SIM switcher and they're instantly in there, they can roll straight away. So we can actually collaborate with the agents to push that digital first approach and build that trust and empowerment as well for the customer. First impressions are everything. Really, we see this a lot when we talk to other people, and also my colleagues as well who are in different areas of the business. Mobile CX is often the thing that will become will make it more better functioning on mobile as a post MVP. We don't have the money right now, or commercially keen to get this out now. This is something that I think with the right prep and the right stats and the right information that you can get data and insight from the business as early as possible in ideation, this is something that needs to be baked in. So it's about making sure that, to my next point, we set expectations from day one. So we're talking to stakeholders specifically about what the problems are, what the problem statements, what is it we're trying to achieve, and actually show those designs from day one with that screen size. Show the amount of copy that's in the area and let them know the feedback from the customer. We are still understanding the proposition. We are still understanding what it is you're wanting us to do, and we are finding it easy. When user testing and creating prototypes, ensure you're mobile first. So again, this kind of feeds into this whole thing that I've been talking about. Is there is no, it's almost a false positive, right? So if you're going to do all your user testing on a desktop with a big screen full of loads of different copy, you're setting yourself up there for those difficulties that are going to come along, and more iteration in the future post MVP for customers who majority are using mobile. At Sky, we're about 75% average, followed by tablets, and then actually as low as 10 to 13% is desktop for us, especially in Sky Mobile. So it's really, really important that we don't focus on desktop screens. So once released, continue to monitor journeys in the context of the browser and device updates. I think this one again is about understanding that even if you've got a successful journey and you've had that really great example of what we said with show customer usage, is keep following up on that and make sure that browser updates and key trends, say for example, if Spotify changed where the menu sits on the screen and we're using cards that swipe up from the bottom, how does that impact those successful journeys? We really need to keep up with those iterations and making sure that actually it doesn't break what has always been such a great journey for you. An example that we had at Sky is that we have a CCA document. So when you buy a new phone, you have to sign a CCA online. The only way to do that is online. You can't call an agent to do it. It's really, really vital.
CCA being?
Consumer Credit Agreement.
Brilliant, thank you.
Sorry about that. So in order to do this, this is how you unlock the device actually being sent out to you. So really, really important. Most of our users use Safari, and a Safari update actually broke the way that the component used for the CCA fit onto the screen. So within a period of 24 hours, we instantly saw this huge error spike of people not being able to sign their CCA, which is really critical for our business. So this is really, really important, and being across browser updates, industry trends, and usage trends as well. And the final point is to reiterate again, mobile CX is not just for mobile apps. So definitely don't neglect your responsive sites. We have to understand that usage across each and set dashboards to monitor that percentage. So for myself, we use Adobe Analytics, and I actually have all the different journeys that I look after and have what we call digital transfer, which is my main KPI. So that is a measured percentage of when a customer has visited a journey, but then has ended in a contact with an agent. So we measure that as a really important key performance indicator within CSG. So my dashboard actually has a big list of all the different things, so role, mix, etc. And we see what that looks like on device screens. So we know, are you more likely to call an agent on the back of completing a swap journey on a tablet as opposed to a device, phone? And even things like if you're using Safari as opposed to Chrome, are you more or less likely to transfer? So yeah, and that's it from me.